Sachs, The End of Poverty. Dive into the complex world of economic inequality through the lens of Sachs' book, The End of Poverty. Get a clear understanding of how geographical obstacles, state governance, lack of innovation, brain drain, and demography all contribute to the poverty trap faced by many developing nations. On the flip side, understand the strategies that have led countries like China and India to progress their way out of poverty. Set out on an engaging journey through history, geography, and economics to better understand how we can work together to end poverty across the globe.
The origins of wealth inequality. The wealth inequality between nations today is the result of the last 200 years of human history, specifically the rapid development and progress of certain Western nations during the Industrial Revolution. This led to a constant global economic growth that the West benefited from more than others. Due to this, some people in developing nations now live on less than $1 a day, struggling to fill their stomachs with the food necessary for survival. Moreover, 18,000 children die of malnutrition daily due to these massive disparities in wealth. While 2.5 billion people can afford basic luxuries such as shelter and a television, and 1.5 billion people live on less than $2 a day. The poverty level was relatively small between Europe and Africa 200 years ago when most people across the globe were living in poverty. Breaking free from the vicious poverty trap. The Industrial Revolution ushered major Western countries into prosperity, but countless developing nations are still struggling with poverty. The reason? The poverty trap, a vicious cycle that stifles economic growth and development. Poor countries often lack the necessary tools for economic growth and prosperity, including infrastructure like roads and communication networks. Geographical position also plays a role, with many developing nations having climates unsuitable for consistent agricultural success and difficult farming and transportation conditions. Brain drain and a lack of innovation further exacerbate the problem. To make matters worse, demographic issues such as high birth rates limit access to education and prevent the next generation from obtaining the tools to succeed. In short, solving poverty requires tackling multiple problems simultaneously. Building wealth wisely. Accumulating capital is essential for building wealth, but economic growth must exceed inflation and population growth. Surplus alone isn't enough if inflation devalues the currency, or population increases outpace economic growth. Wealth building is easier for richer countries where inflation and population growth remain low. Poorer countries, on the other hand, often experience high inflation and population growth, which are difficult to overcome with a stalled economy that produces little surplus. In these cases, growth tends to benefit the elite, while the majority remains poor. The key to building wealth is to invest capital wisely in a growing economy where surplus outpaces inflation and population growth. Bolivia's complex struggle against poverty. Poverty is a multifaceted challenge that requires careful unpacking of every issue. Bolivia's case shows the limitations of one-size-fits-all solutions to poverty. In the 1980s, the country was dealing with hyperinflation due to state spending, particularly on oil and gas production. A shock therapy was implemented to stall inflation, which worked temporarily. However, the issues went much deeper, including geographical constraints and a dependence on the prices of a few natural resources for its livelihood. The country defaulted on its debts and reformed its tax system to increase governmental income, which ultimately led to a more sustainable solution to the poverty challenge. China's rise to superpower. China's current status as a global superpower was not always the case. Until the 1970s, China was a poor and isolated country, with a significant percentage of its population living below the poverty line. However, the changing government, along with China's favorable geography, helped to break the cycle of poverty and put the country on the path to becoming a superpower. China's long coastline and numerous harbors offered natural advantages for trade, generating an economic surplus that helped boost growth. Additionally, the government's decision to open the agricultural sector to private markets resulted in increased productivity and yields, as well as the potential for workers to transition to more profitable industries. Furthermore, the government established job-rich economic areas across the country, leading to a mobile population that migrated towards manufacturing jobs. The flourishing industry attracted greater investments, both domestic and international, further boosting growth. India's journey to economic success. India, like China, was able to rise out of poverty by implementing the correct strategies. However, before achieving success, the country's economy suffered due to political decisions made by then Prime Minister Nehru. Under his government, the state controlled all economic activities, resulting in slow growth until the 1970s. But with the Green Revolution and market liberalization in the 1960s, India's economy began to flourish. The introduction of new crops increased agricultural productivity, leading to a food surplus. The market was opened up, and the service sector, including tech firms such as Microsoft, grew tremendously. Elite universities like the Indian Institutes of Technology provided qualified labor, and graduates went on to establish successful businesses like Infosys and Tata. India's journey to economic success is a testament to the power of implementing the correct strategies. Eradicating poverty in Africa. Africa's poverty results from colonization, poor geography, and little foreign aid. Increasing developmental aid and investing in areas of greatest need are essential to end poverty. Africa has been mired in poverty for decades. Despite the regular injection of developmental aid into the continent, nothing seems to change. The reason behind the crushing poverty that plagues the continent can be traced back to two factors: European colonization and Africa's geography. The European colonists left the continent with no education system, political leadership, infrastructure, or basic healthcare. Besides, Africa's geography has few navigable rivers or irrigation systems, leading to areas of extreme drought and rainfall, making poverty in the region all the more difficult to eradicate. To solve African poverty, increasing developmental aid while channeling it to the areas of greatest need is necessary. This method of ending poverty does not require a new world order, nor does there need to be a total redistribution of wealth across the Third World. The richest countries would only have to stand by a promise they've already made to invest at least 0.7% of national income in development. The problem, however, is little foreign aid currently makes it to Africa, with only $30 per person finding its way to the continent's shores every year. Furthermore, less than half of the $30 ever makes it to developmental projects. After various deductions, only $12 out of the $30 per person is available for aid development every year. Long-term growth, however, requires a surplus for investment in technology like machinery and fertilizer. Without this surplus, productivity cannot increase, and poverty cannot be eliminated. That means the first step in solving African poverty is through international aid. Investing in areas of greatest need in Africa would require approximately $70 per person every year. Eradicating poverty in a country like Kenya would only require about $1.5 billion in total. It is crucial to increase developmental aid and invest in areas of greatest need. Through this approach, poverty in Africa can be eliminated. Combating poverty, a holistic approach. Eliminating poverty requires a multifaceted approach, including debt cancellation, free trade, prioritizing healthcare and agriculture in poor countries, and climate change aid. Poverty remains one of the most pressing global issues of our time. In this book, the author argues that if we are to make a meaningful impact in addressing poverty, we need to take a comprehensive view of the various contributing factors. While developmental aid can make a difference, it is not enough. The first step to achieving poverty reduction is to cancel the debts of poor countries. These countries are already mired in poverty, and the burden of crushing debt makes it nearly impossible for them to move forward. This debt not only limits their ability to invest in their own future but also increases their borrowing and financing costs. Another critical component of the strategy is to boost the economies of poor countries by increasing their exports through free trade. The United States and the European Union currently restrict exports from developing countries through agricultural customs duties. Eliminating these restrictions is necessary to help these countries sell their goods in Western nations. Additionally, healthcare and agricultural sciences need to prioritize the problems that poor countries face. While billions of dollars are invested in fighting diseases that prevail in wealthy nations, almost no research is conducted on treating diseases like dengue fever that are devastating poor countries. It is vital to acknowledge and work on issues that the developing world faces. And, lastly, wealthy countries must help poorer ones in mitigating the effects of climate change, especially those in Africa. African countries release little carbon dioxide and consume little energy, yet they are the most affected by changes in global weather. Climate change plagues Africa with droughts, floods, and other extreme weather conditions that render arable land useless, decimate crops, and destroy infrastructure. When the countries that have contributed the least to climate change are affected the most, it is only fair that those with the most responsibility for the crisis do the most to aid those who are suffering. In conclusion, the multifaceted approach to combating poverty, including debt cancellation, free trade, prioritizing healthcare and agriculture in poor countries, and climate change aid, is necessary for meaningful and lasting poverty reduction.
In conclusion, The End of Poverty by JeffreyDSachs provides a deep dive into the complex reasons for global inequality and offers solutions to helping countries escape the poverty trap. From examples like China and India, we learn that good strategies, investment in technology, and opening markets can make huge differences. For African countries, the need for developmental aid and a shift in international politics is crucial. Debt cancellation, encouraging free trade, focusing on the problems of developing nations, and addressing climate change are all essential steps towards ending poverty. By implementing these solutions and cooperating globally, we can work towards a more equitable and prosperous world for all.